Welcome to the law offices of Chris M. Ingram's Immigration News Show. Today, we asked, are visa costs rising? We would like to thank attorney Chris M. Ingram and staff at the law offices of Chris M. Ingram for their hard work in preparing the research for this show, which draws on a wide variety of news sources from both sides of the aisle, providing a balanced view. Attorney Ingram is also a vocal advocate for the rights and protection of immigration applicants, although our coverage is designed to be nonpartisan. Please don't forget to like, follow, and subscribe to our channel. We are also on Spotify, YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, X, Reddit, and Instagram, where we're growing rapidly thanks to our social media team. You can also visit our website on www.breakthroughUSA.com. We'd love to see you there. Disclaimer. Please note that this presentation should not be intended as legal advice for your specific situation. If you, a friend, or a family member would like a free consultation, you can visit our website at www.breakthroughUSA.com and schedule an appointment. We'd love to hear from you and help you if we can. We'd also like to point out that this presentation was created using AI hosts. Okay, let's dive in.
Yes, let's get right into it.
So, I want to excitedly welcome you, the listener, to this deep dive into the absolute latest legal research provided by attorney Chris Ingram and our legal team. We've got a lot to unpack.
We really do. It's a dense topic today.
Yeah, the core mission here is really exploring the current landscape for STEM professionals in the U.S. right now, navigating the personal friction of the system, border disputes, rising sponsorship costs, and this incredibly tight, talent-hungry labor market we have.
Right. And to understand all of that, you really have to look at the human element first, the sheer personal friction.
Exactly, which is where our legal research introduces this fascinating story about Priyanka Kulkarni.
Her story is incredibly revealing, honestly.
Yeah. So Kulkarni was a former machine learning scientist at Microsoft. And according to the research, her timeline is just wild.
It really highlights how exhausting the process is.
Right. She spent 9 years on an H-1B visa. 9 years. And when she finally tried to apply for an EB-1 visa, she basically described the entire process as exhausting, confusing, and at times feeling very career-limiting.
Which is, frankly, a completely understandable reaction.
But wait, let's break this down for you guys listening. Why is a 9-year stint on an H-1B so career-limiting? Like, why couldn't you just switch to this EB-1 easily?
Well, it's a great question. The mechanism of the H-1B visa is that it essentially ties your legal status to your specific employer. You aren't just a free agent floating around in the labor market.
Gotcha.
So if you want to change jobs, get a promotion, or pivot your career entirely, you have to go through a heavily scrutinized transfer process. It naturally makes people risk averse.
Right.
And then the EB-1 she tried to switch to, that's the Extraordinary Ability Green Card.
Okay.
It does offer permanent residency, but the evidentiary standards are notoriously subjective, and the whole process is just heavily backlogged. So for nearly a decade, she's expected to drive cutting-edge innovation at Microsoft.
All while her basic ability to live in the country is tied up in this bureaucratic limbo.
Exactly. Opaque, manual, administrative limbo.
Okay, let's unpack this.
Yeah.
Because I love what she did next. She didn't just accept it. She actually founded a startup called Casium.
Yes, a brilliant pivot.
Yeah. It uses AI to automate and manage employment-based immigration for employers. And the timeline here is super fast. Our legal team notes it spun out of the AI2 incubator in April 2024.
Right.
And then by October 2025, she had raised a $5 million seed round led by Maverick Ventures.
It's amazing. She was living the paperwork nightmare herself, and she just turned that private frustration into a public utility.
But, I mean, isn't this a little absurd?
How so?
I just enthusiastically compare the U.S. immigration system right now to a legacy software program with a terrible user interface.
Oh, absolutely.
Is the framework really so complex and break-in that it's essentially facing tech workers to build an entirely new secondary market of startups just to navigate it?
It is. The administrative burden is immense. But there's a really critical perspective here for the listener, drawing directly on attorney Chris Ingram's insights.
Okay, what's that?
The very obstacles that these immigrants survive actually give them the inside knowledge to create solutions. The U.S. doesn't just benefit from immigrant labor. It benefits from immigrant problem solvers.
Wow, yeah, that is a great way to look at it.
But we should pivot here because while brilliant new software can streamline paperwork and reduce administrative friction,
right,
an app cannot protect you from unpredictable physical border encounters.
Oh, man. Yeah. We are moving from digital solutions to real-world physical boundaries. And this brings us to an Associated Press report from April 8th, 2026 regarding Ksenia Petrova.
This case is intense.
It really is. She is a Russian-born Harvard University researcher, and she was returning to the U.S. from France.
With scientific samples, right?
Exactly. She brought frog embryo samples with her for her research. She lands at Boston Logan International Airport, and Customs and Border Protection just pulls her aside and cancels her visa.
Just abruptly revoked right at the port of entry.
Yes. Over frog embryos. And what's wild is that the Department of Homeland Security actually defended the detention.
They did.
They claim she lied to federal officers. But the vital detail here is that federal judge Christina Rice ruled that the cancellation was, quote, arbitrary and capricious.
Which is a huge legal distinction.
It is. Our researchers point out this illustrates the vital distinction between criminal cases and immigration consequences.
Precisely. And our legal team always emphasizes that at a port of entry, an officer wields immense discretionary power.
But it's mind-boggling. To me, it's like a hospital administrator trying to perform brain surgery.
Yeah.
You have a customs officer attempting to make highly technical determinations on biological research samples.
It is a profound mismatch of expertise, yeah.
So I have to ask, if a prestigious Harvard badge doesn't shield you from a sudden, arbitrary visa cancellation, how is the broader global scientific community supposed to function with that kind of lingering anxiety?
It's incredibly difficult. And our legal team's core lesson here is that precision in details is paramount. You have to be meticulous. But government overreach can and must be legally challenged.
Right.
However, you make a fair point about the anxiety. Even when a court corrects a mistake, the disruption is already done.
The trauma's there.
Exactly. And for you, the listener, you have to understand how these high-profile incidents create a massive chilling effect on international recruitment and research security.
Absolutely. So a border incident is essentially an unpredictable risk for individuals. But there is a massive, highly predictable systemic shock currently making its way through the government that will hit employers right in the wallet.
You're talking about the Department of Labor.
I am. Let's tackle the core question of today's show. Are visa costs rising?
The short answer is yes.
Well, let's get into the data. On March 26, 2026, the U.S. Department of Labor announced a proposed rule, and it was published in the Federal Register the very next day, March 27.
Right, to revise the prevailing wage methodology.
Exactly. And this impacts the H-1B, PERM, E3, and H-1B1 programs. Let's look at these exact proposed changes because the numbers are staggering.
They really are a huge shift.
So level 1, which is essentially entry level, that is shifting from the 17th percentile all the way to the 34th percentile.
A massive jump for junior roles.
Right. And then level 2 goes from the 34th to the 52nd.
Pushing it past the median.
Yeah. Level 3 goes from the 50th to the 70th, and level 4, the highest tier, jumps from the 67th to the 88th percentile.
And we have to place this within the immediate context employers are dealing with right now.
Right. What else is happening?
U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services just finished the fiscal year 2027 H-1B cap initial registration on March 31st, 2026.
Okay.
Plus, employers now have to use the February 27, 2026 edition of Form I-129. So it's an administrative hurdle on top of a financial one.
Well, here's where it gets really interesting to me. The DOL's rationale is that they want to prevent employers from paying foreign workers less than their U.S. counterparts.
That is their stated goal, yes. We have to report that impartially.
Right, but moving the entry-level floor from the 17th to the 34th percentile is like suddenly telling a small tech startup they must pay mid-level corporate salaries for a junior engineer.
It certainly changes the math.
Will this proposed rule just price startups out of the global talent pool entirely?
Well, analyzing the implications strictly through the lens of our researchers' insights, policy is very often shaped by cost structures, not just legal eligibility.
Meaning what, exactly?
Meaning if this rule passes, it fundamentally changes internal workforce planning. A large corporation might absorb those costs, but a startup might not.
Ah, okay.
So Chris Ingram's vital advice to you, the listener, is to review your hiring strategy early. Government proposals act as loud signals. You need to prepare now.
That makes total sense. But let's synthesize this. If costs and hurdles are rising so drastically, why do U.S. employers even bother?
Because the domestic numbers simply leave them no other choice.
Rome, 20,000 spectators, one epic battle, 2 warriors, one destiny. But before they can fight for glory, they must face the real challenge, getting their visa approved.
If you want to enter, show me your visa.
They should have went to the law offices of Chris M. Ingram. They are very good.
Yes, I've heard the same. They handled my visa in no time.
Off to the lion's pit.
Come with me, boys. It's dinner time.
Because even legends need the offices of Chris M. Ingram.
Are you looking for a visa? Why don't you get your free consultation on the Breakthrough website? We're with you every step of the way.
And that brings us to the macro squeeze, a hungry economy and a shrinking labor force. Let's dive into the March 2026 Bureau of Labor Statistics data.
The numbers paint a very clear picture.
They do. So the U.S. added 178,000 non-farm jobs in March. Sounds good, right?
On the surface, yeah.
But crucially, the labor force participation rate actually fell to 61.9%. Reuters noted this is the first time it has fallen below 62% in nearly 4.5 years.
And that drop is driven by an aging workforce and ebbing immigration.
Exactly. Look at healthcare. There were 76,000 jobs added in March alone. That's up 680,500 over the year, which is a 2.9% increase.
It's explosive growth.
Right. And according to a KFF study, immigrants make up over 25% of hospital physicians and 16% of RNs.
They are critical to the infrastructure.
And it's the same in tech. Cite the February 2026 NFAP brief. Over 80% of labor condition applications for new H-1Bs at Amazon, Meta, Google, Microsoft, and Apple were AI-related.
Wow.
And 65% of top U.S. AI companies are founded or co-founded by immigrants.
The data is undeniable.
So what does this all mean? We have an economy that is absolutely flooring the gas pedal for AI and healthcare innovation, but our domestic labor pool is running out of gas.
Exactly.
If we restrict this talent funnel while our own workforce ages, aren't we basically self-sabotaging our most critical industries?
I agree, and that validates the findings of our legal team. Highly skilled immigrants are not peripheral. They are the core solution to this capacity crisis.
Right.
While domestic training is essential, it takes time. Hospitals and tech labs need specialized people today, and the data definitively proves where immigrant talent matters most.
So true.
Before we wrap up, I just want to leave the listener with a lingering question to ponder, based on the legal research we've discussed.
Oh, absolutely. What is it?
If the U.S. system becomes increasingly expensive and legally precarious for STEM professionals, could we eventually see a massive offshoring of innovation?
Wow.
Where U.S. companies simply relocate their AI labs and medical research centers to countries with more welcoming visa policies, fundamentally shifting the global center of gravity away from the United States.
That is a fascinating and kind of terrifying thought to leave on. Thank you so much for being with us today. We hope you gained a lot from this discussion. Please leave us a comment if you can. Additionally, you can support our channel by sharing it with your friends and family, helping us build this community together. Also, follow us on Spotify, YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, X, and Instagram, where we're growing rapidly thanks to our social media team. We would also like to thank attorney Chris Ingram and his dedicated team once again for researching and preparing this legal research for our presentation. See you next time on Let's Talk U.S. Immigration. Bye for now.